happy Saturday. It is February 18th, 2023, and I have the distinguished pleasure of interviewing somebody that I admire a lot. He's been my child's football coach for the past 4 years, and I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name is Michael Ware, Jr. I was granted the pleasure of sharing my dad's name, and I was blessed with the honor of being able to coach your son for the last, it was like 6 years. I had him modified.
Oh,
I
okay.
Spent some time with him, and and I'm gonna miss him.
Oh, thank you, Coach. I really appreciate you joining me because football has been Trey's passion since Pop Warner, since he was 5, and in return, I've developed a passion for it. It's like one of my favorite sports, and I've watched you guys throughout the years. I guess I didn't pay much attention in Modify. I thought he had Coach Decky, actually, right?
He did.
Okay.
It still falls under my umbrella.
I see.
So
okay.
I pay attention to him, trying to track him and make sure he's coming up the right way.
Exactly. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense then. So I encountered you 9th grade on up. And I'll actually start here. Let's start with your experience as a football player and then how you became coaching.
Okay, so I'm from Yonkers, New York. I played under a legendary coach, Tony DiMatteo. I think he's 2 all-time winningest coach in the history of football in New York State. We were a dominant, prominent program. I was a senior his last year there before he transferred to Somers and won 2 more states. So I had a really good football education. Academically, I wasn't sound, so I had to go to a junior college. I wound up going to Hudson Valley, where I was, team captain. I played there for 2 years, got injured. I had some options to transfer to like Division III schools, but I chose to stay home and go to UAlbany. After that, I was able to go back to Hudson Valley, where I coached for, I think it was the better part of 6 years, until I had my daughter, and I took some time off while I worked for the railroad, and the opportunity presented itself to be an assistant coach at Albany High, and I took the shot.
Okay, and how long have you been an assistant coach at Albany High?
Oh, well, I was the assistant for 1 year, and I've been the head coach. I believe this is going into my 6th season.
6th season, okay. All right, when did you realize that you had a passion for football? Because you don't just go from playing to being a coach and not have a passion.
So I was a lot like Charles in that respect. Like I had like a really good knack for it, right? I didn't have a strong background. I didn't play Pop Warner all the way up. I started in Modified, but I had a knack for it. You would go, and we talk about my grades, right? You would go in my school notebooks, and it'd be a couple of notes on English, and then the rest of it is all football plays and things I've jotted down. And then I got into a couple of situations where I was able to mentor younger kids while I was still a young kid. I was like, man, I can see myself doing this, right? And I saw the impact my coach had on some of the kids that were my teammates at that time. And I was like, man, like I could see myself, like this is a job you don't have to retire from. You could die doing it, So,
I see.
There's longevity in it. So that's what prompted me to do it. And then the irony is, I started in college, and it's a completely different animal than it is high school.
That's actually one of the things I want to touch on, right? Because we had a personal meeting recently with Trey and his dad and myself and you, and we were talking about the college phase of football, and it's different. When you go from being in Pop Warner to being in middle school to being in high school and being the man on the field. Now you're on a bigger stage, and it's a lot more of you. What is a tip you could give for children who are, or young men who are leaving the football field at this high school level and now looking to go to do it on the college stage?
The biggest, one of the biggest things I've seen, the biggest mistake I've seen is a freshman not take the back half of his senior year serious. So he graduates, he plays his last game, takes his helmet off, and whether he runs track or not, he doesn't do anything. And shows up to camp 20 pounds heavier than what he was when we gave him the scholarship or gave him the offer letter or whatever it was. And, he's just physically not the same guy, right? So I would say, you take your helmet off, and if you have strong, inclination that you want to play college football, you need to be in college football shape. The other thing I always tell these guys, and I've told them since I've met them, don't compete with the kid in your locker room, because you're not competing with that kid for a scholarship. Not all of these guys that I coach are college football players, right? And that's cool. But Charles is, and he's competing with a kid that he can't see in Ohio, in Canada. At Hudson Valley, I've recruited kids from London, California.
Yeah.
So don't, you're in the weight room, you're like, man, I'm bigger than him. The buck stops here. I'm the alpha, the alpha guy. But the case of the matter is, you don't know what that kid in Texas is doing, right? He might be working out twice a day. So don't compete with the guy in your locker room. Compete with a ghost. Create an evil villain and try to defeat him every day in the weight room and on the field and in the classroom. Because you're competing with him for scholarships with grades as well.
Yes, and I think that's the part that's missed, though, a lot of times. Student athlete, scholar athlete. You can't just be all athlete and not have the academics. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because the grades will matter. A college who's looking to bring you onto their field also wants to make sure you're going to be successful in the classroom. Because just like in college, those grades dictate whether you can play, right? Okay. Have you ever had to cut any child from the team?
I'll give you some strong. So I was at. So I won't cut a kid at Albany, just because you don't know what the kid's going through, right? And we don't necessarily know where the kid is academically, right? Like, I've had kids who struggle throughout middle school the whole time, and then you get to high school, and I don't expect this kid to, he barely passed middle school, to have straight A's once he gets here. So I think the good barometer is try to make that kid maximize whatever his ceiling is, right? So if you got a kid who fails, let's see if we can just get that kid to pass some classes. If you got a kid that's got B's, let's see if we can get him to get some A's and all the way up. Now, when it comes to college, your finances, your family's future is predicated on how well the kid you scholarship is doing. So let's take Charles, for instance. I recruit Charles, give him a full ride, and he comes, I say, hey, the kid's sound academically, good family, blah, blah, blah. And he comes to my school and he flunks out. And he can't play because you need a 2.0 to play, right? He just loses his mind, goes out partying or whatever. He can't handle the coursework because I didn't do the proper research before I gave him a scholarship. Now that looks bad on me, and I'm the guy that paid this guy $90,000 a year to go to school, live rent-free, and get meals and all that. So I think in college, you kind of cut yourself. And at Hudson Valley, people don't, it's funny. It's right in our backyard, but we don't understand how much of a meat factory it is. Again, I coached there. I recruited kids from California, from London, Canada, Florida, and everything's microwave there, right? Like at Albany, I get to spend time with these kids. Like I get to know you. If you lived in Florida and your child was at Hudson Valley, you wouldn't really know me that well. We would have that relationship. So the relationship, player-coach relationship is different, and because I have 100 kids on my roster and I got 17 kids at my position, and most of them are college football players now. I don't have the one time to predicate to one kid, right? So, you lose that relationship with those kids, and it's a lot easier to say, hey, bud, go get your grades together. Let me know if you ever get them done. A lot of times they fall by the wayside. It never happens.
Yeah. And definitely, like I tell my children that was of college age, your teacher isn't going to be on you, where your professor in college isn't going to be on you like your teacher is at your high school or middle school and checking on you and calling your parents. You really have to exercise independence, prioritization, and all of that. You said something, and I want to circle back to it real quick. The high school player is different than the college football player. What distinguishes the two?
All right, so there's a couple of things. So naturally, your body type, your physicality, the type of athlete you are, that's one thing. And then there's certain guys that are just not natural born competitors, right? And we see it in the workforce. Some guys that get up and go get it, work up at 5, got 2 jobs, and then you see guys that barely getting by. They wake up on time, play a lot of video games, don't do much. The same thing with athletes, right? When a guy becomes a college football player, he has both. Right, Trey's a good athlete. Trey has great work ethic. So naturally, it's the same thing with Ja. Ja's a great athlete. Ja has good work ethic, so it works out. I have had kids that were great athletes, didn't have the work ethic, or kids that were hard workers, but they're not great athletes. And it's really luck of the draw. God creates us the way He creates us for whatever reason. And like I said, I got kids on my roster now that work harder than most of the outside of Trey and Chuck, but they're 5'5", 150 40 pounds. So him going Division I and playing Division I ball is, probably out of the equation. Could we find a home for him? Maybe, but the likelihood of going on and play college football is way less than a guy who has the measurables and the work ethic.
So the physicality and all that to be able to. Okay, I see.
Because you don't realize the jump. And again, remember, he goes from being a senior here, being 280 pounds, 180 pounds here, and being the biggest back that most of these teams are going to see, to going to school where he's the smallest guy again.
Gotcha.
And those guys are 24 years old because they've been playing for 4 years or whatever it is after college and grad school.
Yeah. Can a child, or I can call him child, sorry, can a young man of his stature build, or any stature, that 5'5", 5'6", is the likelihood of them being able to reach that college stature?
So the 5'5" thing is nothing you can do about it.
Right, your height is your height.
We don't have a machine for that
No
yet.
puberty coming, no second wave.
No stretch machine. And again, like the maximizing of whatever God gave you, right, is the most important part of the whole program. Like, that's what my program consists about. You say you want to be an athlete, I'm going to be in the weight room 3 days a week. Can you be there? I'm going to have 7-on-7s. You got to be there. So I give you every opportunity to maximize whatever gifts God gave you. And then, weight training, just your diligence. Are you there lifting weights? Are you there to socialize? Are you really doing the extra weight? You asking me what else you can do, right? Like, I got a small contingent of guys that acts every day. This is it? Like, this is all we're doing, And then I got guys that say, I can't do anymore. So, and again, usually I could see who's serious about it and who's going to be a college football player at some point, pretty early in the deal. Like, right around 10th grade, 10th, 11th grade, you get the sense, all right, this guy's a great athlete, but he's going to get eaten alive, once he faces another guy like him who's been working out. And then you see guys like, man, he just something about him. He's going to figure it out. There's been guys, I have a shameless plug. There's a guy named Owusu Anani.
Okay.
He's the councilman of Albany, I think 13th Ward. Don't kill me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
He went to Hudson Valley, transferred up from Brooklyn. He is probably exactly Charles' size, maybe a little bit smaller than him. He's about 5 foot, maybe 5'7". And at the time, he was probably 160 pounds. And he was a real good back, high school back in Brooklyn. He goes to Hudson Valley. Now, again, Hudson Valley, there's a bunch of monsters there that nobody knows about. I always say, you walk around the hood, right, and you say, man, that guy's a great athlete. Why he never did anything, right? That guy's at Hudson Valley, right? The guy without the grades that was really good, phenomenal athlete, he's at Hudson Valley. He's at a junior college somewhere. So Chief's there. We call him Chief. Nani's Chief.
Okay.
And he's the smallest guy there, slowest guy there, weakest guy there. But he knew his stuff. He always knew his plays. He was always at practice. He was a hard worker. He did everything we asked him to do. He was a little bit of a, I'm not going to put his business down, but he was a little bit of a knucklehead, but we were able to reel him back in.
All right, fair enough.
And every young man's a knucklehead. I tell them all the time, they're all jerks. But we were able to reel him in, and he waited his turn. We had some guys that were really good talent-wise, who flunked out of school. Right? Midterms came around. They couldn't play. He gone on to go in, and I think he broke a touchdown record. And again, he shouldn't have played, but his tenacity and, his determination made him play. And then, it's funny, I see that same kid, fast forward, I think it was 15 years or so, and he's the one that helped me get the job at Albany. He knew him and Joey DiPiazza were real good friends. He was assistant coach. And I was like, you're a politician now? Like, the same guy that I knew, right? So, again, like, there's a certain guy, right, that could supersede, like, physical traits, but they're rare. You know what I'm saying?
I want to touch into some. Before that, you don't drink, do you? Do you drink?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so.
I drink, I would say this, I had 2 drinks last year.
2 drinks?
2 drinks.
Okay.
And on vacation, I had 3.
Okay, so you're really, all right.
I've already beaten that.
You got wine, I got water. You prefer one over the other?
Water, I'll take water.
Okay. Can you get Coach a glass of water? Well, I want to circle back to looking at the person, the athlete, right? The person with the physicality, who has the ability, versus the one who doesn't have the physicality, but they show up, they work hard, they play. As a coach, which one resonates more with you? The person who has the abilities and you gotta continuously coach them to get them to what you want, or the person who doesn't but they're showing up every day dedicated? What means more to a coach?
So to me, and we everybody has grander dreams of like going to NFL, NBA. Like that's the likelihood of that happening. You can take that, throw that away. The likelihood of that human being having a family, being a dad, being a husband, having a job, and having tenacity to get through that, that's way higher. So the guy who I see comes in and puts the work in, puts his hard hat in the weight room, does everything we ask him in the classroom, like, I know that he's going to be all right when the world hits him, right? Because we all understand as adults, these kids don't really know it yet, but at some point you're going to get thrusted into the real world, and the real world, you know, sometimes it's tough. And if you don't have some resolve and some tenacity, you ain't going to get through it. I fear for the great athlete, actually. Like, the great athlete who has had everything handed to him. You know, some coaches allow him to do whatever he wants, and he goes in, and he has an easy high school career, doesn't really have the grades, or didn't ever develop the work ethic necessary. The first time he gets punched in the face with adversity, how's he going to respond? He hasn't been battle tested, right? So I always say, you know, I prefer, my guy is the guy that works hard. Do I wish I was blessed this past season to have the hardest workers in the room be the best players? In the past, it hasn't always been that. But I prefer the guy that works hard over just the great athlete. You know, the guy. Don't get me wrong. The great athlete's going to come and he's going to help me win games. But at the end of the day, 20 years from now, winning a high school game doesn't matter. Like, the kid that I coach, is he going to be the councilman? Right? You understand what I'm saying? So
I like that.
I prefer to be that. You know what I'm saying?
As a coach, how much does winning matter?
So I'm a sore loser, and I won a lot growing up in college. So I really hate losing. I went to Hudson Valley. I won there. We turned it around. When I became a coach, we turned it around. It took a lot of growing up, and ironically, when I first came to Albany, it was the winningest season in the last 20 years. We won 5 games, and I was like, "You guys are like celebrating. This is like it's the Super Bowl. It's 5 games."
Now you see why.
Now I see why. Now I see why. So, in a broad scope of things, do I want to win? Yes. Does it matter as much as developing a young man to be a great human being at some point? No. And we all do it as coaches. Sometimes we sacrifice one for the other. But I try not. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. I try not to sacrifice one for the other. Right? Like, there's been times, and I don't know if Chuck remembers. I had a team, and I had a big policy. If you don't practice, you don't play.
Okay.
Right?
And you're firm on that.
I was up until the COVID situation. I had become a little bit more lax. You don't practice, you don't play. And I had a situation where I had defensive backs. All my corners missed 2 days of practice. No, they missed one, at least one. If you miss one, you can't start. Right? So I had 5 DBs. They all missed one throughout the course of a week. I sat them off for the first 2 drives at Gilderland. I'll never forget. And I'm sitting there, Coach Simpson, a good friend of mine, you know.
Yeah.
We're sitting in the, he's on the headphones, and he goes, "Mike, I don't like this." And I'm like, dude, they're never going to learn that they have to show up to get paid. You got to go to work to get paid. You got to come to practice to play. And it doesn't, how does it resonate with the guy that we was talking about that's working really hard in the weight room, and he never gets an opportunity, right? But he's been at practice every day, but I got this good athlete playing ahead of him who just goes through life willy-nilly. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to let the guy who's been at practice and Gillen continue to score 3 untouched touchdowns. They found the corners. I think we played 3 linebackers at corner who had never played the position. And, you know, ironically, here, I'm sitting on the sideline, and I'll never forget, and this is kind of how I knew I was pushing in the right direction. My captain, he walked up to me. He's like, "Man, I got way more respect to you than I ever had today. I don't think I would ever have the guts to do that." And right then and there, I was like, "All right, I'm going to lose by 50. But
you're teaching a lifelong lesson. Yes.
Right. So winning matters, yes. And I think the funny thing is winning gets easier the more that you win in high school. Right? These kids won't gravitate to other places. If Albany was 11-0 And in the playoffs this year, we get those kids who are like, I'm going to go private, or I'm going to go, here. But at the same time, you sacrifice, because again, football's this fast.
Yeah.
We all see it. And but being a grown man is, you're going to be older than you're going to be younger. And these guys are all trending that way,
I want to talk about the winning, right? So, like I said, I had the pleasure of watching Trey play from Pop Warner on up.
Right.
And I've always seen that he just, defensively, he was exceptional. There, from flag football, there was nobody who could run past him, and he didn't get him.
Right.
Tackle, same thing. He was in on every tackle.
Right.
So I watched him grow through all these seasons, and they've had Pop Warner 8-0 undefeated seasons damn near every season. I can't even think of a season where they lost more than 1 or 2 games, right? So then you go to modified. They have a really good modified season. He's quarterback, and I'm super proud of him.
Right.
He's doing a great job. As long as I don't hear his phone go on while we're talking, I'm good. He's doing a great job. Then he gets to high school, right? And I noticed, I have a theory as to why it's probably happening at Albany High. And maybe you could speak on it. And it's not the same.
Right.
I mean, you're going from 8-0 to 0-8 some seasons. And I look and I say, where's all the kids that you play with? That y'all was gelled. I mean, y'all meshed. Y'all had chemistry. And then they dispersed. And then no, you know what I'm saying, no shade to the parents, because everybody does what's in the best interest of their child. But what I adored about this season, I don't know how they made it happen, but I think it was at least 7 of the kids. I'm talking Stratton, Basong, Jaja, Trey, Temple. Who I'm missing, Poppy? Unique. Like, these kids have played Pop Warner, and they stayed together to play together. And I saw a difference this past season than I've seen in the seasons without all of them.
I'm not 100% sure if you remember it. Me and you had a meeting with, I think, I don't know if Stratton's mom was there.
It was at the high school.
It was at the high school.
I know exactly who it was. It was a gentleman there and 2 other women. I know exactly what it was.
We had a conversation, and I expressed to you guys, I was like, the key to Albany being successful is the players being retained year after year after year. And, we had this conversation. Some of those kids, I think he wanted to transfer to get the whatever. We won't even get into it. But that was, to me, the key is no other district has to deal with it as much as we do, right? So I live in Clifton Park currently. Their modified team, their Pop Warner team, first of all, they have a Pop Warner league. They just play each other. They don't play outside of that except for one team. Their modified team funnels into their freshman team, which funnels into... They don't lose anybody. Same thing with up in Saratoga, same thing with Boston Spa, same thing with most of the schools surrounding us. Albany is unique in the fact that, who knows why, or we all know why, there's all these private schools bordering us, right? And they're just in step of our district where they can pull it off. So it's a unique, and again, we spoke about parents doing whatever they believe the best interest of their kids. And I agree with that. But I think there's something to be said with, one, doing it where you're from, right? Staying home, doing it where you're from. 2, and again, it's just my, I want to do, I don't want to say the impossible, but I want to do really difficult things. That's how I was brought up. And if you're telling me, man, you know what, I can go there and I could be the linchpin to what drives Albany to be successful. I can show people that, hey, man, I went to Albany, we weren't doing hot, we got better, and then I went on and played college football. To me, that's more noteworthy than going to a team that had just won the championship. I go there and I'll be, maybe a contributor, maybe not, because we don't know what the roster looks like. And, I just graduate, right? Where's your experience, right? You were on the sideline. At Albany, most of these kids are going to play. Our numbers are, we don't have, you go to Shen, there's 100 kids there.
Right.
At Albany, most of these kids are going to play. And I know, I'll get a little flack sometimes for not playing kids. If I don't play your kid right away, I'm probably protecting your kid, right? And again, we're parents. I expect you guys to all be advocates for your children, but sometimes, again, we talk about that that percentage of a kid, you know, if I have a lineman and he weighs 160 pounds, and Shen's lineman 6'6", 320 pounds, right?
Yeah.
You know, just by luck of the draw. But yeah, the difference is, you know, my mod squad, I've yet to get a full team up, right? This year is a combination of two different, we'll call them recruiting classes, but we're just graduating classes from middle school. Charles is older than Stratton and Temple, and Jaja, and even Jaja stepped away and came back. But those two now imagine if I had both full middle, you know, that 8th and that 7th team this junior year, like, you know, the world's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
You know, you look at some of the guys at, you know, CBA. There's a couple of kids at CBA that played mod for me. There's a couple of kids at Albany Academy that played mod for me, and even at Green Tech now. But imagine those kids were all on one roster. Right?
Exactly.
Right.
That has been my thought. And I peeped it and I preached it from Pop Warner.
Right.
And I used to talk to all the parents again. Let's get the kids to stay together.
Right.
Let's send them to Albany
Right.
High. We'll have the best
Right.
season. Like, these kids are amazing. They
Right.
know each other. They know the strengths. They know the struggles. They know the challenges. You know who to throw the ball to maybe
Right.
at a certain yardage because
Right.
they're always going to catch it. Who
Right.
maybe is better at,
Right.
you know, passing.
Right.
Like, they just get it. And then to see them disperse, and it's like, womp womp.
Right.
But a shout out to everybody who allowed their child to stay at Albany High this past season and play together, because this was one of the best seasons for these boys in high school, and they got to enjoy and experience something that kids who dispersed didn't. And I wonder, I don't know, I think the only time I considered even Trey playing for another school district was during COVID when the vaccine was mandated.
Right.
Now, I didn't want to get it,
Right.
but I wasn't against it.
Right.
You know, his dad was like adamant, and I had to respect that too.
Right.
See what you could do, I'll respect it.
Right.
But inside of me, I knew I didn't want my son to wear any other uniform except Albany. It just didn't feel right. So when I knew there was no chance of him going to any other school district, I said, you get the vaccine, I'll get the vaccine. That way we're doing it together. And that's how he did it. And I'm glad he was able, I think he played a part too in
The rest of the guys. Right.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
Right.
So how big is leadership, and how do you identify leaders on the team to do stuff like that?
So there's a couple of type leadership styles. There's rah-rah guys, right? Oh, let's go, guys. Huddle up, let's break it up. And then there's the guy that's going to do everything. It works when he's the best player, right? He does everything you ask him to do. He shows up on time. He's in the weight room. His grades are great. Like, so the younger guys or the guys underneath him, they don't have an excuse, right? I'm like, look, that's the best player in our program. He's doing it. He's working. If he's running these sprints 100 miles an hour, he's already faster than you. What are you doing, right?
Yeah.
So I would say that's Chuck's leadership style. Then Jaja's he's a little bit rowdier. And the same thing with Stratton. They're what I call hype guys. I've never been a hype guy. I've always been kind of like Chuck. Like, I'm going to show up, put my hat on. I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to know more than you. I'm going to be a better athlete than you. And then there's guys that are just going to be hype and have more energy than you. I can't do that. That's not who I am. But there's definitely a space for it. And some kids gravitate towards that. So I always make sure I get a couple of guys on my staff, you know, that have that energy. And, you know, you have to be careful with picking leadership. You have to spend a lot of time with the kids. You know how the kid is in front of you, right? This is his representative in front of you. Yes, coach. No, coach. You don't know who the kid is behind you, right? So you could be promoting a leader who is in the back tearing everything down. Well, he's playing that guy. He should be playing this guy, and I shouldn't. You know. I respect the guys that'll say, like, me and Chuck said, hey, coach, why isn't this guy playing, right? So I can say, hey, well, this is why he's not playing. And he gets an understanding, and I can understand. Now I know he's going to go back to that kid and say, oh, he's playing because you don't go to practice. Oh, he's playing because you don't know this. He's playing because you got to get stronger, right? So it's a little bit of a mind, trick, but I know he's not going to go there and say, he hates you. You know what I'm saying? He hates you, and, it's because your mom yelled at him in the stand,
Right.
It's none of that. So deciding your leaders, you just have to be observant, and you have to kind of get a feel for what the kids gravitate toward.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is you got to make sure you're not promoting a guy who's a snake behind your back, right? A guy who, and they're not snakes, they're kids, but a guy who's not doing necessarily the right thing. So all the kids are like, they love Chuck, but they don't know what Chuck's doing when Coach Ware's not looking. You know? So you got to be careful. I think the last 2 seasons we did a good job. Temple's been a captain. Good family, great kid, great grades. Chuck's been a captain for 25 years now, right? How many years you've been the captain? Ja's been a captain, and so I'll elect captains, and then we allow the kids to vote, right? So I'll say, hey, right, these are 6 kids or 5 kids that could possibly be captains. Then we'll let the kids vote, and then sometimes it's just just evident, like they know, like Ja coming back, he was gonna be a captain. Like the kids knew him, they were grabbing. He wasn't even playing games at that time.
No.
He was elected a captain by peers. And he wasn't playing.
Now, is it anonymous, or do y'all do it like an open forum?
I can't remember. Sometimes we do like, all right, everybody close your eyes with your hands up. You know?
Okay.
And then sometimes I'll ask these guys, like, hey, what do you think about, we have a thing called the Leadership Council. And it'll be like 8 guys, and then it'll be a mixed group. Some young guys, some older guys. And then I'll really sit with them, and I'll ask them, hey, how do you feel about this guy? And then some guys will be like, don't do it. He might not necessarily snitch and tell me the kid's outside doing things he's not supposed to do, but he'd be like, don't do it. He's not, which leads him to believe he's not who he is when he's not around us, right?
Okay, yeah.
So I really just pay attention to what they feel, right?
Yeah.
And some of them be like, John's got to be a captain. Like, what if I get enough of that? Like, okay, this is a no-brainer. I'll let them vote, and it's the results will turn out the way they're supposed to turn out.
Okay, that's good. So I love that it's coming from not only the admin, head coach, the coaching staff piece, where you're not only picking, but you're identifying who deserves this position, but their peers are too.
Right.
I never forget, y'all had one 7-on-7. I don't remember the young kid's name. If I did, I wouldn't mention it. But he had transferred to the school. He was new. And I was just observing him. I think it was only 7-on-7 game I was able to catch. And he was not in the mood. He was upset. And I remember speaking to him after the game. And I was like, hey, kiddo, because I like to show all the kids love. I know that there's not a lot of parents there, so it's important for me, for every child to feel like somebody's cheering them on. And I said, hey, kiddo, how are you? And he's so good, I was like, what's wrong? Come talk to me. He walked down the fence with me. He was like, I'm tired of them picking on me. He's like, I'll fight everybody on this field. And I was like, it's deep. He was having a challenge. And come to find out, he was new and he didn't feel like he was being embraced. So he felt alone. And one of the conversations I had with my child, because he's not a rah-rah leader, or yo, let's do it. I said, lead by example. I said, that's the player you embrace. You show him love. You make him feel included and wanted. Because then you'll get that back from the team. And, there was some things with missing practice. I said, but you don't know what his struggle is outside of that. Maybe he has to work. Maybe he has to watch his younger children. Maybe it has social anxiety. You just don't know what someone's going through. And as a coach, when you see things like that, how do you, I feel like y'all take on a parental role a lot of time. What's your role in trying to get children, players, to mesh with the other team, and how far are you expected to go comfortably?
So we talked about the distinction between college and high school. So in college, I had a great relationship with my guys, but I wasn't the head coach. The head coach has 150 guys. The assistant coach has 17 or whatever the case is. So I kind of got to know these guys intimately. As the head coach in high school, it was a little different in the beginning, right? And I'm not from Albany originally, so I don't really know. I don't know you, right? I don't know all these parents from Pop Warner or whatever. So I kind of got to get hearsay. Eventually, it came to the point where I was like, I got to do some digging, got to shake some hands, got to talk to some teachers, and all that provides me insight as to what's going on at home. I know the kid you're talking about particularly. He had a really rough situation. He transferred in from another school for to keep him anonymous.
Yes, exactly.
And me and Chuck had, and here's the thing: the leadership council will know that, right? I'll say, I won't tell them what the issue is. When they say, Coach, he doesn't, and again, we talk about having a great stable of leaders. If you're not holding up your end of the bargain, they're going to hold you accountable. And these guys were relentless. I didn't have to. Not once did I have to say run, because everybody was going to run because he was running and the other guy was running. So, we've had this conversation before, and I say, hey, bud, like, he's got some some real, I call it real life. Can I curse here?
Yeah.
Real life shit going on behind the scenes. We're just gonna try to be here for him. When he can show up, he'll show up. And and then the problem is, you don't really know how much all of the stuff he's telling you is true. Like, they might know something I don't know.
Right.
They might say, yeah, well, he wasn't at practice, but he's on Snapchat. That's the thing I got him now. I got him all on social media. He's on Snapchat with his girlfriend after the movie theater. But I'll get the background from multiple sources. I'll have I'll take a kid and go get a slice of pizza and have a seat and what's going on, this, that, and the third. So I got an idea how I can coach him. And then I'll try to echo that without echoing too much to the kids. Hey, he's got some real life stuff going on. He may not be at every workout, every practice. And then I'll straight up tell him, like, we're going to do more for him than he's ever going to do for us, right? Like, because that's often the case. The program is going to be more for him than he's ever going to help the program. He might not ever score a touchdown for us, but we'll give him structure, we'll provide him a safe place to be, and give him something to do, and try to help him graduate,
Love it. I always tell Trey, I recognize how dedicated you are, Coach Ware.
Yeah, I try.
Like, seriously, I was like, even I used to have to be like, y'all got what today? Coach ain't got nothing to do. He don't got a vacation, a date. So I do, but I love it because one thing I think that kept him really focused that you would preach to them, I call you his field father, is girls are gonna come. Girls are gonna come. Keep your head in the game, and I love that. And because Valentine's Day just passed. I'm like, Trey, you got a little girl? Can we go shopping for her, get teddy bears and chocolate? No. I was like, you're not dating anybody? No, Coach be like, leave the girls for later. And I was like, really? Okay. Which I liked it because it helps keep them focused. I do because, you said you're not the rah-rah guy. Have you caught in flack for being such a laid-back coach? And I asked because I remember that meeting you spoke of, where we were all together, and I think one of the dads was very worked up about the losing streak. And in my head, I'm going back to the Pop Warner theory. You're working with a bunch of kids that probably never played before. But you were so chill and calm that I felt myself getting defensive for you. Like, hold on, we ain't going there. But anyway, so, like, how do you handle that when you have parents that are like, I want my kid on a winning team? Well, I want to win too as a coach.
Right. The irony is, how do I say this PC? The irony is the parents that are that animated about it, their child's typically not playing that much, right? And to say it without saying, if your child's not playing a whole bunch, and where like, I'm playing everybody that can help me win.
Correct.
Right. So if I only got 29 guys and the kid's not playing a whole bunch, maybe he's not as talented as we. You understand what I'm saying? So most of the time, when the argument's about playing time, it's usually an underclassman. It's usually a smaller guy, right? And then if we take that attendance and we go straight to, like, hey, how many times has the kid been in the weight room? Oh, he missed the weight room, the whole year. Like, there's part of the issue right there, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I catch flack. It doesn't really bother me. Like, this is all, I'll say it's WWF, it's wrestling. They give me, now I'm going to beat you up, I'm going to blah, 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 but nothing really ever happens, And, I lift a lot of weights for a reason, like, I don't think we're ever going to get physical. But yeah, and it doesn't bother me, like, because here's the thing, like, I have to teach the guys that are watching me how not to be emotional, right, under fire, right, and how to keep a cool head under fire. If we're losing by 50 and we're winning by 50, I'm going to be the same person, and I strive to be the same person. If I'm getting praised for a great job, or I'm getting yelled at for doing a crappy job, I'm going to try to keep a base level, right? You don't want to get too high, you don't want to get too low. So that's kind of, that's kind of how I take my criticism, right? The same way I take my, anybody giving me praise for whatever reason.
I saw a quote one day, it says, never accept criticism from people you wouldn't take advice from.
Right.
And I like that. It's almost like you say, you receive it all, and you let it all go, whether it's positive or negative. You try not to get too high on any of it. I want to circle back to parental involvement, because you mentioned parents and showing up and being present, being vocal. Is there ever a time when parents do too much, and is there ever a time when a parent doesn't do too much? And as a coach, where do you see the balance between a parent's presence and ensuring their child's success on the field?
Too much. All right. I don't believe like if your kid's not making practice and making workouts, you getting them the expensive trainer somewhere is a waste of time, right? Because everything he's gonna have to learn to play that game is taking place at those practices.
Okay.
The chemistry he's gonna have to build with those players is taking place in that weight room session. You know, when we do a competitive drill, when we do backpedaling here. So yes, you can take him, you know, on a Sunday morning somewhere where we're not doing anything, but pulling him out or not ostracized, but you know, putting him in his own space and then trying to drop him back into the middle of the world, and he's got to learn all the skills, and you know, because you know, not saying anything's wrong, anything's right, but a way some team teaches a coverage or a route may not be the same thing we're doing, right? And it's all about timing in some cases. So I think, you know, before you pull a kid outside and, you know, get him a speed coach and this thing and this, that, like, is he doing what he's supposed to be doing amongst the group? When it comes to, like, you know, parents, all right, so I think I overdid it. So I refuse to be that. Like, I want to be like you are. Like, I feel you are his biggest fan, right? I don't believe you come in here and say, put on the film. This third down right here. You
I don't.
This blitz. Right?
Okay.
I know there's parents that do that. I know there's parents that say, oh, it was this third, whatever, you ran that right, the quarterback didn't get you the ball, he was what, you know. There's parents that do that. I think once the kid takes off the helmet, he has to be your kid again. Right? Like, if you're on the field, high five, blah, 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 but he has to be your kid. Like, my kids, I didn't want to force them to play sports. My daughter likes volleyball. But I'll never critique. I'm never going to coach them unless they come to me and ask, right? And you know, like, I think the parent should be the biggest fan, the biggest advocate. There's film sessions where we're listening to film and I'm like, Chuck, is that your mom in the background? Right? And you can hear her scream, go, boy! Right? But to me, like when you're long and gone, many moons from now, like, that's what he's gonna remember, and that's what he's gonna carry on to his kids, right? Hopefully, he's not gonna be the dad in the stands like, man, you gotta put your right foot forward, you gotta step with this hand. What are you doing? You know what? No dessert today. We're going out back to the, you know. Yeah. Be a fan. Advocate for the kid. Be involved. If a coach says, hey, we're gonna have a parents meeting, right? Go to the meeting. You know, but I think, you know, we get caught up, like, parents get too caught up in, and again, you know, I don't know every single parent's particular case, but most of them don't understand the game as much as they think they do, right? A lot of parents are spectators, right? They watch the NFL on Sundays. This is not the NFL. They watch college football, or they played 20 years ago. Like, the football game, if you're not, it's like karate, right? It's a martial art. Like, you know, this is this now, but it's going to evolve into this, and the terminology might be different. You might not necessarily be helping your kid by telling him how to backpedal or whatever if you're not doing it the way we're doing it. Because it's, you know, we're going to have to unfix it, you know, in order to get him to do it the way we're doing it.
You said something important, because I don't really know plays, I don't know routes. I'm so impressed, and I'm like, how'd you know to do that? Or when he tell kids, follow me on the field and help them. Impressed, because I don't know. But I know his dad records damn near every game. And we would come and we would watch it as a family, usually that night or the next day. And I'll notice things like, oh, Poppy, why did you run right instead of left? Because he was wide open. You could. And he's like, when you're in the game, you're in the game. You know, so I hope I did a good job of not critiquing him. But you talk about being his biggest fan, and I am. Like, I've never missed a game from Pop Warner flag football at 5 up until his last season last year. Even that cold North-South game we played, the All-Star game, I was there, but as soon as the game was over, I ran to the car because it was that cold. Like, I'm afraid of the cold. And sometimes I feel like I'm a bit obnoxious, but I'm really into it. I'm passionate about it, and I want him to hear me. Is it important? Like, are you able to correlate parents showing up for their children and cheering them on and the child's success versus the child who performs on the field with no support in the stands?
Yes, 100. I can almost tell you. Almost. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I'm a psychiatrist. I can almost tell you when he doesn't have both parents in the house. Right. So there's kids, and I don't coin the phrase, but there's kids that come with everything in the box. They're balanced, all their needs are met at home, they eat well. You can tell because they're usually square. Academically, they're sound. And their emotions are intact. They never get too high, never get too low. Like those kids, most of the time, everything's in a box. If the kid's too one way or the other, it's typically because things aren't necessarily balanced at home, right? I got kids that have multiple siblings that they have to take care of their siblings. Those kids are a little anxious. I got kids that just things aren't right at home when they're over emotional, over expressive. They crumble at the drop of a hat. Kids that've been through traumatic experiences. I think the more tight knit the household, usually the more buttoned up the kid is, right? I'm almost 100% sure there's a direct correlation between having a sound household and a kid doing well outside the household, right? That starting point is so important, and I think a lot of our kids, so I try to again, their situation varies, and I try to be whoever that kid needs me to be. Like with Charles, I just have to be a football coach. This is awesome. Even with Jaja to an extent, I just got to be a football coach. And then there's some kids who don't have their dad, and they've never been, I don't want to say yelled at, but never been talked to. Some kids never had to
assertively
from a man. They don't, and you can see that, right? And then you got to gain that trust, right, with that kid. But yes, having you guys, I tell you guys all the time, you guys are awesome. Having you guys have both of you guys, and you can see the balance, right? You can see the balance. He knows everything's going to be all right when he takes his helmet off. He knows he's going home to a hot meal. He knows, you know what I'm saying? Everything's going to be all right. And then there's some kids who I'm going to take this helmet off. I don't know what I'm eating today. You know what I'm saying? Or, so it matters. It matters. And I hope more parents become engaged in their kids' extracurriculars, because it might rub off on their academics, right? Yeah. So if you tell a kid, hey man, you come to this kid's game and you're cheering them for the game, oh man, I love coming to your games, and then you say, man, if you don't got your grades right, I can't come to your games. And that might be the only intimate moment that he gets to share with you. Even though he's 50 yards away with you, he gets to hear you screaming his name. You're there just for him. And you can use that to get this kid to go to class, right? But people don't see it like that, right? They just see it as, I'm not going out there and sitting in the cold, or I gotta go to work. Or
y'all not winning.
Right.
Oh my God. Can I just touch on that real quick? Yeah. It grinds my gears to be sitting in the stands, right? Hearing people say, oh, that's why I don't come to the game. Or, oh, they didn't win it, so I'm not coming to the game. And I can't tell you how many times I wanted to slap the fucking taste out of somebody's mouth and be like, don't come. We don't need the negativity. Keep that shit on the other side of the fence. Because that does more harm than you being there, period.
So, okay.
Or not being there, I should say.
My thing is two things. Your son at some point is going to raise a difficult kid. Maybe. Who knows what happens, right? Maybe the kid's difficult. Do you want the kid to not go? You want the dad to not show up because the kid's just been difficult, right? Football is difficult. We talk about that. We talk about building a sense of, tenacity, right? You're showing that kid that he's not worth it, right? Because it's him. You're not going there. Like Albany High is cool. I love it to death. But I don't coach because there's a falcon on my helmet. I coach because there's kids that I like and the kids that I want to help. You're not helping your own kid by not going to that game, right? And if you're being disruptive and being belligerent in the stands, like you're not embarrassing me. I got a headset on. I can't hear anything. You're embarrassing your kid, right? So I always tell parents, like, you don't have to root for me. You don't have to root for the colors. You got to root for your son, right? He's the one that you had, right? And you not showing up to something that he's devoted so many hours to, right? You're not showing up to that shows that you don't feel that what he's doing is important, right? So I think, and again, we're all human beings. We're all, I'm flawed. Everybody's flawed. I think we got to look at what's really important. The kid's important. How can I support this kid? Oh, they're not winning. I could be there to be the first one, and I like that. You guys are always the first. I have to yell at him, hey, huddle up first before he goes kiss you guys goodbye, right? Like, be the first one at the gate to rub his back. Say, hey man, get him next week. Be the first one at the gate to give him a high five when he wins, right? You don't have to know anything about football to do that. Right?
No.
So
even just to say, good job,
Right.
good work. Did you
Right.
give it your all?
Right.
I'm not there for the win. I'm there to watch my child
Right.
do something that they love
Right.
and that they're passionate
Right.
about. And I can't tell you. I've left emotional because after a game, kids that I can't remember their name, but I recognize their jersey and their face. They come and say, "Thank you for being here.
Right.
I appreciate
Right.
your support."
Right.
And genuinely, me, I had one kid walk out the line and came and hugged me
Right.
at the end of the game. Was like, "I really appreciated you this
Right.
season."
Right.
Had no idea I was
Right.
making that kind of
Right.
impact. I'm just showing up, cheering
Right.
for my kid, and rooting for all the kids. And they appreciate and they
Right.
see it.
Right.
So parents, if your kid is on a winning team or
Yes.
not, if they're the best player or not, just be there because as Coach Ware is
Right.
saying, your presence does matter.
And support. Scream the kid's name. Like kids don't get like, and it might be a community thing, but if a guy fails, everybody will go to the internet and bash the kid. It'll make its way around. If the guy's successful, everybody whispers it, right? If a kid gets in trouble on the streets, everybody knows what happens.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that kid. He's been at football practice every day, been busting his butt. He's got straight A's. He's got there are parents who post that stuff, but I don't think that gets shouted loud enough.
Yeah.
A lot of the time it's the negative stuff. And even sometimes it could be in the building. Sometimes it could be wherever. Like, all right, that kid may have gotten in trouble. Okay, that kid may have flunked that one class. But what about all the great things that he's doing?
Mm-hmm.
What about the positive kid that he is? What about the discipline and determination it takes to lose and come back? Right? Like that's
game
something.
after
Right.
game.
Right.
Yeah, and I want to get all the boys together. I keep telling Trey, please get your Pop Warner crew together because I want them here on a panel just to talk about that perseverance.
Right.
Just to talk about that perseverance. So you've been with me for almost an hour, and I really appreciate your time, and I don't want to hold you up too much longer. But I do just want to know, like, for somebody who's watching, if there's, a parent out there and they say, I would love for my child to do an organized, coordinated sport like football or basketball, but I don't have the time to get them to practice. I can't show up for the games or, I can't afford because sports can be expensive. Like, as a coach, do you have words of advice or suggestions?
So, all right, so I can speak on my school.
Yeah.
The sport that you're like, so for instance, and I'm not all coaches. I will make it as cost effective as possible. So we talk about financially. My kids, I make it a point. And sometimes they get upset with me. They're like, "Hey, coach, we need these new fresh hoodies. We ain't got no swag." And I was like, "Man, put up the store." And I was like, I refuse to put up a store and have half my athletes dipped out and the ones that can't afford not wearing anything. So we're all just gonna wear the same. I hate the brand bash, but it's the same non-Nike or whatever we were wearing shirts. So for football wise, and most of the sports in the school, any cost will be, and we have our athletic, Ashley Chapel. She reveres experience over gear, right? So if your kid needs cleats to have this experience, they're gonna we'll figure out a way, right? And we have a bucket of cleats left by all the kids that were able to get cleats who decided to leave their cleats at the end of the season. We will find a way to fit your kid in the gear. Like there's nothing financially that's gonna stop the kid from playing. Camps, we'll figure that out. I don't think I've had any players pay for camp since I became a head coach.
I don't think so, yeah.
Right? So, and that just goes to show, like, again, I refuse to have somebody that can't afford to show up to a camp and then somebody that can't miss out on an experience. So the school and the district provides for that. Time is one of those things, but I think we have to, and to each his own. Like I work, for the railroad, and I understand schedules and all that. I think if you express to the kid that, hey man, like, I'm not gonna make every game, but you circle a date on that calendar, and you say, I'm gonna make that date right there, that kid will understand that that's his day, and they'll understand, hey man, Dad never takes off of work for nothing, but he took a personal day for that game right there,
Will you put that child in because he said, Coach, my dad never comes and he's there?
I've done it in the past.
Okay.
I've done it in the past. I don't like to say that because the parents are going to say, my grandmother's coming up from, you know what I'm saying? Right, but I've done it. I've done it. And I think, here's the thing. Like, I literally try to get every single kid in that can get in there and not get hurt. Right? We've had kids with, whether it be disabilities. We've had kids. Like, I've had girls on my team. And it's my responsibility to not put her or any child in a situation that they could potentially get hurt in, right? Like, if the game is ultra competitive and it's starters versus starters, and I put your child, your 110-pound child in there, and he gets clobbered, we're going to have a meeting about it. There's going to be a federal hearing about it. And then I get the same flack for waiting for the game to be out of hand either way, and then the other team puts in their second, third stringer. Now I can put my younger guys in there, and I'll get flack. Oh, my kid only played 8 plays. And I'm like, man, like, and, you know, again, as a coach, you know, do I have the heart to say, hey, like, do you want me to do this to your kid?
Right,
or
right.
do I have to say, you know what, you know, we'll get this kid, you know, he's got to get in the weight room. I'll give him, you know, some buzzwords to try to get the parent to see the picture without embarrassing the kid, you know, but it doesn't always fall that way. But just, like, and I tell the kids, show up when you can, right? Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, I know I'm a parent. There's times my daughter's got, like, a dance, and I'm like, I want to drive over there and drop her off. But if you show up when you can, the kid will appreciate it, right?
True.
And then, again, sometimes you just got to, you know, you're going to take a little pay cut. Maybe you don't buy burritos for lunch for the next 3 days. You take the day off of work, and, you know, show up, just give them that one day, right? And, you know,
Sacrifice and compromise. Same thing they do on the field, we should do off as parents. I do want to say, because the audience here, you call him Chuck. I've never referred to Trey as Chuck, right? It's been Trey's Poppy or Brian. But hold on, right? Because I actually hate it. I was like, why are they calling you Chuck? I call you Trey. Trey or Charles, like, don't have them changing your name, Poppy. Tell them. Like, I was so adamant. I don't know if he ever said anything to you. No. But it wasn't until I read your letter of recommendation. I'll let you explain why. But it was such a beautifully written letter. Thank you so much for doing that. And I could tell the love and passion you have for my child in the words that you wrote. And I was like, oh, I get it now. So explain how.
This bald dude over there. So it started with my assistant coach, Lance. He retired from coaching football. Lance McCall. He was his JV coach. He's like, Chuck, he's a tough guy, whatever. Taken after Chuck Norris, this quote-unquote toughest man in the world. And even in the group chat, Charles is going to hate it, but in the group chat, sometimes I work nights. In the middle of the night, 1 o'clock in the morning, I'll throw in a, you know, Chuck, turn out the lights and be in the bed before it's dark, you know.
Read the whole string
all that. I do that to him all the time, and all the kids. I'm going to promote my guy Chuck, you know. So that's where and he really was, you know. Like I again, it's a tribute to his parents and his upbringing, and then, you know, there's something about the guy that I know he's going to be all right, right? Like I watched his face when we won with a big smile, but not overdo it, right? And I've watched his face when we lose, and he looks at me like, how are we going to figure this out? But it's never like, he's got the same expression I got on my face. Yes,
with the criticism versus the accolades.
Right.
You have that moment, and then you...
Yep. And I, you know, and I know, like, it's, I would say 1/3 of my guys, 2/3 of my guys, by the time they graduated, I'm like, man, what didn't he learn? You know what I'm saying? Like, when I'm pushing him out into the world, but I don't get that with him, right? And there's a couple of kids that I haven't had that in the last couple of years. And like I said, everything's in a box, and I think as a parent, you get all the credit for, you guys get all the credit for it, because it all happened here. When I got him, he came that way. I was just able to make life really difficult for him, right, on the field, and you know, give him a little callus. He got some calluses, maybe a little bit of muscles, but everything else was in the box, right? Like, no problem.
Well, we look to you for a resource for sure, and coaches can be resources, because I tell you, when he don't listen to me and his dad, I was like, maybe we should call Coach Ware, because I know how much admiration and respect and adoration he has for you. And even when children forget that they're disappointing their parents, they don't want to disappoint their coach or teacher. And so there's times I might text you or call you in the future and be like, you might want to talk to your boy.
I'll give him the business. Hey, you graduate, I can beat you up now. I'm a grown man. I ain't got no problem with it, man.
No,
You need your pops to jump you.
I think he know. I see how much respect the boys have for you, and not just my child, but all the children on the field, and you coaches out there who devote your time and your energy and your resources. I don't know if I speak for all parents, but I think the parents who do appreciate it will allow me to say we really appreciate y'all and the sacrifice and the dedication and the commitment to that.
Right.
Because you're giving our children something positive to do. You're keeping them focused, and you're teaching them those lifelong lessons. You may not be the best athlete, but you're learning how to do something you enjoy, while also, learning great tools for the world.
Right.
Any last words you want to say based on what we talked about for anybody who may be watching? And
to all my fellow coaches, keep doing your thing. I think it's an honor to coach, right? Like, I think, we look at it, some of us look at it as a job, some of us look at it as a passion. I think it's an honor that parents like yourself entrust us with your children for, I've had, partial custody of Trey for the last 4 years, right? And I think you should be honored as a coach and never forget. My biggest thing is love the name on the back of the jersey more than the number, right? Because, the player, he's only going to be a player for 4 years, right? For you. And he's going to be, Charles for the rest of his life. So I think you got to love the player more than you love the number. Coach the kid the way you would wish somebody coached your kid, right? And as for the parents, like we said before, man, just be there. The difference in some of these, like, I've had kids in the last year who their parents never took the time out to be with them except for coming to football game. And the look on their face when they say, my mom's going to be here today. Oh, my mom, you understand what I'm saying? Like, you don't know how much the kid is watching and how much the kid admires you. You'll never know, right? And you never know how much they yearn for that. Because some, especially young boys in particular, they're not going to come out and say, I need my mama. So just be there. And if it's once or twice a year, so be it. And again, use the coach as a resource. I think every single coach, it's a privilege, but it's a part of our job, right? I think we should be a part of the disciplining process, right? If we can help you there, we should be the part of the getting the kid to go to college part. Like, I think I've seen high school coaches and college coaches as well fall short of that. Like, man, you use the kid up, and you're not going to make a phone call for the guy. You're not going to, even if academically he's not sound, you're not going to try to, if any kid in my program says, Coach Ware, I want to play college football, I am going to find an opportunity. Even if I look at you and go, dude, you ain't a college football player, I'm going to find an opportunity. Because it's not always my decision, right? You can go somewhere and figure it out. I'm going to find an opportunity for you to go on and play at the next level. It could be junior college, it could be prep school, it could be college. But I'm going to do my damnedest to get you an opportunity to play at the next level. I can't guarantee what happens after you leave me. But I'll do everything within my power.
And as a parent, that means more to me than you having a winning streak and not giving a shit about my kid after an injury or after they finish high school.
I appreciate
so I really do appreciate that. Thank you so much, Coach Ware, for joining me. I waited patiently all season. So I do appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Y'all could have been anywhere in the world today, but y'all chose to sit here with us. So thank you. Take care. Be well. Peace.